Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today I'm about to show you something literally no one is asked for, okay? This is a Copilot Game Experiences, the new series of AI experiences where Copilot becomes the game. For anybody that has no idea what Copilot is, to remind you, obviously I think most people in my community know, Microsoft's Copilot Assistance AI tool is something that has basically been baked into Windows, Xbox, pretty much any Microsoft product. And remember, I want to start this video off by saying I'm not picking on Xbox. I genuinely do like to call out what I believe to be a bad practice. And to be fair, you know, there's plenty of videos I made on Nintendo, plenty of videos I made on PlayStation, EA, Ubisoft, you know, a lot of these, you know, big gaming publishers. Anytime there's something wrong that happens. Now, there's good stuff that these people do, okay? I think Microsoft has some pretty decent backwards compatibility. Emulation is something that we may talk about in this video. Probably will. So to give you guys a quick idea of it, this is a 30-second primer, okay? Hey, Copilot, let's play Bleeding Edge. So again, you go to Copilot Labs, and in these gaming experiences that they're going to release soon, you can see that this is a, again, game entirely generated by AI. Now, you may remember when I played with Counter-Strike, right? Like, I actually played Counter-Strike, but I played a version of it in AI, and it used my RTX 4090 to the absolute, like, zenith, and of course, provided a quality of the game that pretty much represented, like, a 16th of what Counter-Strike would run like. And again, it was one AI game where if you flipped your character around 180 degrees, it would just absolutely lose its marbles. You probably also remember very, quickly, things like Descartes, right? Where we could actually play something like Minecraft entirely in artificial intelligence. So to give you an idea, this is Minecraft generated entirely in AI. There's no game code. There's nothing from the actual game being done. So you can see how I've got this distant object. But again, if I very clearly look in different directions, the world just completely changes entirely. So that's generally the idea. You may remember when I talked about things like Game Engine, which is basically Doom generated entirely through artificial intelligence rendering, right? No game code, no nothing. And the way all of this stuff works is it's taken hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of hours of footage generated by the game itself and human input to create these AI, again, replications of what it thinks the game is, right? So what Microsoft is doing is no different. They're using a game known as Bleeding Edge. So if you look at the actual footage over here, it's running at 10 frames per second. And at this moment in time, it's probably a lot better than what I've shown you in the sense that there's a lot of stuff in this game right now that is preserving or at least being more coherent, right? Like the Minecraft example where if you look up and you look down, things break. But here it does reflect some level of cohesion. You can still see that smeary effect when it comes to generating the frames, and that's just a byproduct of, again, image and video generation. So yeah, it's something that Microsoft is apparently implementing. And, I saw this basically the other day, where apparently the way that it's being framed is actually hilarious. Now, this video is unlisted, introducing Muse, our first generative AI model for, again, gameplay ideation. Now, the way, again, this is being framed is funny, because the CEO of the company is saying, if you thought AI-generated text, images, and videos were cool, just imagine entire interactive environments like games. So this guy, the CEO of Microsoft, by the way, links to this empowering creators and players with Muse. So let's give this a read quickly, and then we'll look at the way that Xbox's team is framing this, because to me it feels completely opposite. It feels like they're trying to like launder the use of this tool as if it's not going to be intended to slop out video games or possibly take away some actual jobs from the industry that is better left to human beings. So again, in nearly every corner of our lives, the buzz about AI is impossible to ignore. Gee, I wonder why that is. I wonder what are the main companies that are pushing for this? It's all these big tech companies out in California. It's destined to revolutionize how we work, learn, and play. For those of us immersed in the world of gaming, whether as players or creators, the question just isn't how AI will change the game, but how it will ignite new possibilities. And I'm somebody that is not a technophobe. Like, if you use this technology for cool reasons, like one cool reason I'll show you right now is this one Doom project that I saw. So there's this tool called VisiDoom, which allows you to develop AI bots for games like Doom. And again, this is just with visual information. If you could apply this for games that are long dead, like, older PC titles and just generate like bots for multiplayer gaming somehow, that would be cool uses of bots that I would see, right? That's where AI like this makes sense. But to introduce Muse, for instance, in partnership with Xbox's Ninja Theory, they worked on a game called as Bleeding Edge. So if you don't know what Bleeding Edge is a game that you can buy right now on Steam. It's $40, and the reality of this game is apparently it is very dead. So I would not recommend this game since it's a multiplayer-only title. But yeah, it looks like a standard Overwatch. Well, I guess it's more of a Concord clone at this point. And you can see that it's just your generic, like, third-person hero shooter at that point. So, of course, you go down into this, ladies and gentlemen. What's groundbreaking about Muse is its detailed understanding of the 3D game world, including physics and how the game reacts to your controller input. So, like that Counter-Strike example where you could hit space, it would jump, use your mouse, WASD, yada, yada, yada. So, Microsoft's research initially set out to explore how AI models can support new experiences, focusing on developing capabilities that could allow game developers to ideate and expand upon their work in new ways. To accomplish that, they interviewed 27 global creators to make sure the research was shaped by the people who would use it. So right now they're basically saying, yeah, we'll basically allow game developers to be playing around with this for ideation, right? Not for use in the public sense, just to help you create ideas, just to help you understand and learn how ideas could work. And the thing about it is, I feel like when I compare this to exactly what the CEO of the company said, where again, he's trying to pitch this as like, hey, think about all the crazy AI videos and images and crazy stuff that exists. Think about playable video games. As if Microsoft's not going to eventually like create some Copilot tool where it's like, hey, generate me an open world cyberpunk video game that I can play right now. And it'll generate like the sloppy open world nonsense based on, again, constant data that it's learned from actual human-produced games just for the audience to keep using, right? Now, honestly, if you were to do this for like a development perspective, I'm not against things like AI being used to storyboard, possibly dream up concepts, but I don't think this is entirely what this is for. So what they say it means for gaming is the model research is pushing boundaries of what we thought was possible. We're already using Muse to develop a real-time, playable AI model trained on other first-party games. And we see potential for this work to one day benefit both players and game creators, from allowing us to revive nostalgic games to faster creative ideation. So today, countless classic games tied to aging hardware are no longer playable by most people, which I would say that is somewhat true. Like, obviously, if you have old school hardware doesn't sell forever. Right? Like, there's no official PS2s being sold at all by Sony. There's no official PS3s being sold by Sony. In fact, the PS3 is probably the best example in the story. There are games like Metal Gear Solid 4 that are locked to a specific piece of hardware. But thankfully, without the use of computationally hyper-expensive AI, we have things like emulators, right? So RPCS3 you can install right now, run MGS4 on it, and granted, your mileage may vary depending on how powerful your hardware is, but you can play that old game on modern hardware with an emulator, all right? In fact, most emulators do this. Microsoft themselves create plenty of great emulators to run old games that are not being sold or distributed anymore. It's actually wild how we now have to somehow revive old games through artificial intelligence solutions, right? So they're exploring the potential for Muse to take older back catalog games from our studios and optimize them for any device. We believe this could radically change how we preserve and experience classic games in the future and make them accessible to more players. So somehow, instead of, the tried and true emulation that already exists for classic Xbox games, Xbox 360 games, classic consoles in general, that's suddenly not good enough. Suddenly, a AI regurgitated version based on thousands of hours of obvious gameplay footage from that game may be the better option, okay? Like, make it make fucking sense. AI will probably never be good enough to generate an entire game, or at least emulate an entire game from back in the day, because you're still always going to have those issues with persistence issues where it is always going to be just easier in the head to literally port that game over. Like, no matter how many hours of Metal Gear Solid 4 footage you may have, there's no way you could ever make a Muse version of the game that will at least be better than, like, somewhat of a port. Even the worst port of that game will still be better than some AI version that doesn't even try to tap in that older code. So to imagine the beloved games lost to time and hardware advancement could one day be played on any screen with Xbox is an exciting possibility for us. Another opportunity we are exploring is how Muse can help game teams prototype new gameplay experience during the creative process, taking game players already love and enabling our developers to inject new experiences for them to enjoy. So yeah, that's effectively what's been brought up. And of course, they have a video where they kind of talk about this a little bit more in depth. And it's worth watching. It's unlisted, but that's because it's part of like an Xbox blog. So I don't really think they're trying to hide the fact that they're doing anything, but it's a whole 7-minute long video. And I've watched this video. I've seen some people just read the title and just basically say, oh, AI, obviously got to be bad. But let me show you what I believe to be the most important part of this video.
Great to be here.
And I think for us as a game creator, the thing that I'm always really interested in is how can we help our teams do more? How can we help them to push their creative ambitions and their creativity even further? So technology like this for me, and I think for our studio here at Ninja Theory, is not about using AI to generate content, but it's actually about creating workflows and approaches that allow our team here of 100 creative experts to do more, to go further, to iterate quicker, to ideate quicker, to bring what's the ideas in their heads to life in a tangible form for others to see. So
yeah, I think that's probably the most like laundered way to sell this product to people out there in the market. And obviously AI in video games, it's got kind of a nasty rap. I think generative AI is just one of those things where people hate to really look at, hate to really talk about, because you constantly hear about, again, just AI generated songs, music, videos, and in a lot of cases, the technology is getting better. Look, when AI video was a thing, when Will Smith's Spaghetti started, obviously we kind of laughed at that, but it evolved to a point where Will Smith eating spaghetti is now something that is infinitely more, infinitely more impressive than what its first, iteration was in just a short amount of time, right? Like obviously a AI generated video today is something that, if you're not, if you're not like, if you don't understand the tells, you may actually end up falling for it. You might think it's actually real footage, right? And it's a dangerous step, because as many jokes as you can make, there's some serious, risks of things like misinformation coming out from it. There's some serious issues with obviously revenge pornography with AI video and yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of illegal things that can happen from it, just as like there's a lot of fun stuff you can make. Point is, it's getting good. AI image generation is getting really good. It's getting way better than it initially was when we first talked about it. You have things like AI generated computer code that's getting better day by day. And the thing with AI generated video games is obviously I don't doubt that at some point it can get better day by day by day. And the thing about AI generation in the video game sphere is, imagine if you're making a game like Call of Duty, which has had, fingers pointed at it for AI generated stuff, right? This, if it gets good enough, eventually will actually replace the people working on our favorite games. So just imagine if down the road you want to make a Call of Duty game, instead of actually like, hiring an artist to make the gun skins, for instance, just generate that shit using AI. It's good enough. If you want to deal with map making, for instance, right? Why even hire somebody to make maps anyways? Call of Duty players have like absolute bargain bin fucking standards. Just generate AI maps, for crying out loud. Obviously, I'm extrapolating a little bit over here, but the more and more you can automate, the more and more you can slop out in the development pipeline, the better it is for these companies from a cost effectiveness, right? Like, why hire people? Why balloon up budgets for video games when you can use these generative AI tools and just dramatically drive down costs? Obviously, as a consumer, you and I, who have played good video games, who will play good video games, won't be interested in slop like that. But then again, we're not the primary audience. there are still millions of people a year that buy shit like Call of Duty, that buy shit like Madden, that buy stuff like 2K, which literally could be AI slopped and not a difference will be made in their financial like spreadsheet. People will still continue to buy that shit. People will still continue to buy mainstream things. It's why when you talk about like internet boycotts and like, you know, internet anger regarding a specific title, those titles will still continue to sell like crazy. Assassin's Creed Shadows is like the target literally of like actual serious criticism, very serious criticism. There's a reason why I'm very skeptical on Assassin's Creed Shadows. But I don't doubt for a second that that game won't sell like hotcakes because of the brand IP attached to it, and simple as that. So when it comes to AI stuff in video games, I literally don't actually think, you know, the broad gamer is going to be affected by this. People will still continue to buy this as long as it's good enough, okay? Good enough. That's all that matters to these companies. Now, obviously, I'm not here to completely rag on Microsoft. For every division they do that makes me wonder, they do cool stuff. Like they designed this quantum computing chip that apparently has them discovering a new form of matter, like apparently just a new form of matter entirely. And they're using this chip to develop more quantum training chips. But of course, one thing that Microsoft also does cool is it makes a lot of the software accessible for people to try. So the WHAM, which is literally the model we're talking about, the World and Human Action model, is something I'll try for you on camera today. I'll actually run this and show you how this works. So the way that any of this is you can see that on Hugging Face, Microsoft has posted these train models, 200 million parameters at 3.7 gigs and 1.6 billion parameters at 18.9 gigs. I'm going to be using the 200 million parameters because I don't have the hardware that Microsoft is using, okay, for obvious reasons. So the current setup assumes that you have a CUDA-supported GPU, which is an NVIDIA GPU, for model inference. This has been tested on an RTX A600 and an NVIDIA A100 respectively. So to look up what these GPUs are and the cost of them, the cost is somewhere around $7,551, okay? So a pretty expensive piece of hardware. And again, the NVIDIA A100, also if you wanted to look at the cost for this, just outright, you can see that that's $22,000. So obviously I don't have that card, you understand. So at this moment in time, they actually guide you through cloning their repository, which again, I have done here. And again, this is done entirely underneath Linux. Again, you can do this in Microsoft Windows, but I'm a Linux user. So here I've copied their repository. I've literally ran their local setup script, which made this venv, this virtual environment, which then allowed me to actually run these models. So once I downloaded these models, again, the 1.6 billion and the 200 million, parameter model, I then actually ran this script right over here, Python running dream.py. And again, this created a piece of software. So to show you how expensive this project is, I have the command right over here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to open up another terminal and I'm going to show you NVTop, which is going to show you how much my graphics card is getting absolutely butt-fucked as I run this command. So when I hit enter over here, oh, wait, what is this? No, oh, I haven't run the virtual environment. All right. There we go. Redo it again. Boom, hit enter. So as you can see, it's firing up, it's spinning up the gears, and you may not be able to hear it, but my GPU is going, woo, something's going on here, pal. So there it is. It's creating model with version 2. And of course, you can see the system here is now just dreaming. My GPU usage has spiked up. The power is rising. And yeah, it's definitely a scenario where, again, my GPU is getting used harder than when I play something like Cyberpunk 2077 with path tracing, or around the same, 100%. Because, yeah, that's where AI has gotten to. You either spend a shit ton of resources, or you can play, you know, a game. A better looking game. So again, now that it's dreamt up everything, I've got the dreaming output right here. And what this provides is a small little MP4 file that's 124 kilobytes in size. So I'm going to open that up in VLC Player just to show you what the game has generated. So this looks low resolution, and again, it's because I'm using the smaller parameter model, but also this is a resolution of like 300 by, I think it's like, let me actually see the exact dimension for this. Details, it's 300 by 180, okay? So it's a pretty low resolution clip, but if you hit play, you can see that this is what the AI has generated. So it's got that smeariness, it's got the user interface right over here, and again, you can see that it's generating my alt, and again, it's generated entirely by WAMP. So it's got kind of like the user interface making a little bit of sense. It's got my character going over here. But yeah, ultimately, this is just a tool designed for, again, generating gameplay based on user input. To show you how much resources it required over here, the training for the model happened on 98 H100 GPUs. For anybody watching that has no idea what the price of this is, I'm going to just look this up for you. Around $25,000 per GPU as of August 15, 2024. So yeah, 25,000 times 98. That's where you're looking at in just the raw GPU cost. We're not even factoring in the human cost, the electricity cost, all of that, right? Training time was 5 days. So yeah, you might be wondering, wow, Muto, all of that cost and expense just to generate bleeding edge footage, the game Bleeding Edge, in AI. Was it worth it? I think I'll let you decide, honestly. So they even mentioned the limitations. The model is trained on a single game, very specialized, not intended for image prompts that are out of context or from other domains. The model can only generate images at this fixed resolution. And you might be like, well, isn't that incorrect and hard to see? Well, maybe we can partner with NVIDIA at one point and just upscale those frames. Maybe generate some more frames too. This is only running at 10 FPS. We can use multi-frame generation, get at least a clean 40 somehow. So yeah, basically if you have any other game but this, you should basically expect to train another AI model out of it. Now look, at the end, no one asked for this, ladies and gentlemen, and when it comes to the idea of preserving older games, like I said, emulation is a thing, and it has been a thing, and Microsoft has put that constantly in a thing, okay? So I don't understand why we're getting to the point that this is somehow what gamers needed, okay? If you want to preserve old games, for instance, like forget about the ideation of games in the future. I think this is just a sly way for Microsoft to outsource literally the game development process to artificial intelligences and slowly remove the human aspect out of it. And I think it's not just Microsoft, it's Ubisoft, it's EA, it could be Konami, it could be anyone, it could be PlayStation, it could be, these are all corporations that care first and foremost about profits first, the human experience later, right? And I think with generative AI, the thing is when it starts to bleed into artistic mediums like this, that's when people get very inflamed. There's good use cases for artificial intelligence, and it does not have to involve the delineation of like one of our favorite art forms, which is video gaming. Ironically, from Microsoft's own unlisted video, one of the top comments is, "We just wanted Banjo-Kazooie, man." And if you want to play Banjo-Kazooie right now, you can pick up Rare Replay and emulate it on your Xbox. You can literally pick up like Project 64 or like any N64 emulator, play the original version right there. And all of it, literally, you can even play that shit on your phone, for crying out loud. All at the fraction of the cost that I spent to generate fucking 10 frames for you guys to view here. 20 frames, I think, if it's a 2-second long video. And again, like, I feel like this is really catering to people that aren't gamers, but people that are just like enamored by the technology of AI. Because the way that I always describe it is like, yeah, this technology is cool. AI generated video is fine. Photos are fine, but even they have limitations with coherence and understanding the state of things. Imagine that with a video game where a slight flick of a mouse will cause an entire AI, the best AIs in the market so far, the most innovative ones, to forget understandings of what's going on, right? Like imagine if you play a game like System Shock, for instance. Great game. You know, you flick your camera around and suddenly you're looking at Shodan, and then all of a sudden you're looking at something entirely different. The game just is not running on real code. It's trying to just generate what it thinks the game is. You're playing an actual hallucination. And the reason I mention System Shock is like when we talk about the preservations of video games, like there's a studio called Night Dive. Great studio. They made a game called System Shock Remake last year. A game that I literally sat down and played like straight. 3 days I spent playing this game. I've never really done that at all. This game just captured me that well. And it's a game that they built from the ground up as human beings. Okay, they remade an old PC game, all right? A PC game that is so fucking archaic to play that even somebody grew up playing PC games, usually looks at that and says, yeah, I'll watch a playthrough. This is a game that I enjoyed playing. It's a preserved game, and if you're talking about game preservation, it might be more impressive to do this with older titles, like actually rebuild the game, instead of throwing that shit into Muse because you have tens of thousands of hours of footage, because that's what you need to train models, and just work from an actual human crafted experience right there. But yeah, this is all I really wanted to talk about. It's wild stuff. Nobody asked for this. Literally nobody. But lo and behold, we have now received it, thankfully, or it's being worked on by the lads over at Copilot. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Maybe I am just an old man yelling at a cloud. I don't know. But if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.